Well, good morning, Terry. How are you?
Morning. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks. Yourself?
Very well, thank you. Very well. Another day in lockdown with back-to-back Zoom meetings.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll try not to make this as painful as maybe others might be. I don't know. I've been.
No, not painful. It's just a beautiful day outside, and you just sit there watching the sun go up and go down, and actually feel you're missing out. But it's so hot, you don't want to go out there either. So anyway, we'll be fine.
Very much so. So Terry, would you like to start by just introducing yourself? Now, clearly I know you. I've worked in an organisation which you led, and I will allude to that a little bit later on, although the premise of this is around the coronavirus. So would you like to just give us an introduction to yourself and what you're doing now, please?
Yeah, sure. So Terry Watts, currently I am the executive director of an organisation called Building People, trying to get more diverse workforce into the built environment sector. And I say built environment because construction is too narrow a definition. It needs to be much more exciting as the built environment. I'm also the CEO of the Chartered Surveyors Training Trust, which is a small charity, and we're just refocusing on getting young people into surveying, but again, introducing the built environment through a program at GCSE Geography. And I've got a startup MMC advisory business, which is actually developing a COVID-19 response as well. So maybe we'll come on to that. Background is IBM for many years, a long while ago. I tried to take advantage of the dot-com boom. When my dot-com failed, my old boss encouraged me to go and join him in a organisation called a Sector Skills Council, which looked after the kind of definition of NVQs and apprenticeships for the technology sector. Did that for a couple of years, really loved working with people rather than just machines. And so I ended up as CEO of an organisation called ProSkills, which is where we met Rob. And ProSkills was about trying to get the skills and investment in people development in the supply chain to construction, really. So the extractives, building products, glass, wood, coatings industries, and all those industries that provide the raw materials for construction. And had a great time there with you. And I was there for 7 years. I'm not sure how long you were there for, but something about 5 or 6, I think. And then the SSC network was going out of fashion, so I decided to move on. And since then, I've been an interim manager for all sorts of things, including a principal of an FE college for almost a year, international skills development director for a big training company. And I was headhunted into the CIOB as MD for 18 months, 2 years. And I left there about 18 months ago. So I've still got passion for the built environment. I think there's a massive opportunity for people to have really exciting careers there. And it's unknown because everybody thinks of it as being construction and digging holes in dirty, rainy fields, which is part of it, but it's not the only thing they do. So that's what I'm doing now.
Thank you. That is a great hitchhiker's guide. And the only part of you I ever knew, if you like, was when we worked together. So coming through, there's a couple of themes there. There are people and developing organisations through people, but also given their timeline, there's also leadership in tough times there, because there were tough times in recession, there were tough times you alluded to, the sector skills councils going out of fashion, etc. So you're kind of well versed to speak on this topic, I would have thought. And I'd like to just swing now into the kind of COVID period of time. So one of the responses you have is you said you'd remain positive and about the challenges of communicating that optimism. Would you like to just explain that a bit more, please?
Yeah, I think I love being involved in organisations where things are tough. I don't know quite why. I like a bit of adversity. If a business is ticking along smoothly and everything's going well, I think I wouldn't be the right person to get the last 10% out of business. So that's not something I'm particularly motivated by. But I'm a really strong believer in, if you've got a clear set of objectives and a proposition that makes a commercial market or a not-for-profit market, doesn't really matter. If you've got a mission and a purpose for the business which is clear and worthwhile, and it can be to make money or it can be to change the world, you communicate that to the team, you'll build a business that's really successful. And it's about, for me, as a leader, communicating and sharing your passion and your drive and direction is. So when I arrived at the FE college, for example, I was the biggest team I've managed. I had 550 or so people there, and the principal, I was dropped in at the last minute. It was a March time, so just as they're beginning to do the end of year budgets and things for that current academic year, and then plan for the coming year. There was a big cut in funding, had to make 10% of the staff redundant. They had a big black hole in the budget for that year that had to try and claw back. And that's the environment I love, because the people who work in FE and that college were absolutely passionate about what they did, and they really wanted to succeed. They really wanted the young people to be, and the older people coming through their training to do the best and be the best they could. And what I did was I said, that's you're good at. I'm better at actually running the business, making the numbers add up. So what we need to do is work together to get this hole closed. And this is what we're trying to do. And you know, I do this, I over communicate. Some people think every week I write an email to the whole team and say, this is the good things about the week that's gone. These are the things that haven't gone quite so well. And move forward on to try and get the whole team from the senior managers through to the people manning the desk at the reception or doing the cleaning to be part of that vision and that purpose. A new lead change, and ended up making 10% of the staff redundant, which wasn't a nice thing to do, but they knew, the whole organisation knew why we were doing it, what the target was, and most of the people who came forward were not happy to go, but there were no complaints, there were no appeals or anything. Everybody understood the situation. We were open and frank and honest, and it all went through very well. And we overachieved on saving money in a new direction for the forthcoming year. And then I got halfway through delivering that when the other guy came back, fortunately, because he was well again, and so I had to hand back the reins. But get a whole team involved in driving towards a new direction is really what I think is important. And COVID gives us the opportunity now, disastrous as it's been for some businesses, painful as it's been for most, and you know, I don't think anyone will have come out of it without being affected in some way. But we have got an opportunity now to reset and do things slightly differently. So we've had time, and I've used the time, I hope others have, to say, okay, I'm not as busy as I was before, because even if I'm doing the same jobs, I'm not traveling as much, to think about how I can do things better, how I can do things differently, and how I can try and engage more of the network around me to do things in a different way. And I'm hoping how we, as we come out, we're building a better future rather than reinstating the status. Does that help?
Yeah, very much so. And again, what I'm hearing here is a high level of emotional EQ, highly developed EQ skills. But I know people have got highly developed EQ skills leading in businesses, but what they, I mean this respectfully, they lack that kind of focus, that spine of steel to say, look, this is what the organisation absolutely needs for survival purposes. But I know what you mean about over communication, and personally, I would have never accused you of that. But I know exactly what you mean. I have always been of a nature where I'd rather know so I can do something about it. And some people I'm talking to at the moment, their challenge is not communication. They're communicating, but they're babbling, if you like. You know, it's a lack of focus, and those things you spoke about, absolutely. So what we're trying to do is a strand of things here, dual strand. One is develop their EQ, and one is develop their kind of focus as well. And it's tough for some people. It really is tough, because that emotion that you hinted at, how people have been understandably distracted from their purpose during the crisis. But I believe the same as you. Where there's, these are my words, not yours, but where there's chaos, there's opportunity.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm bearing in mind also you've got an 11 o'clock. So keeping that in mind, this is really rich stuff. Thank you. How would you advise other business leaders of all natures, whether they be IBM or a 10-man operation in Doncaster? How would you advise them to take their people through this crisis?
I'm not sure. I feel I'm too humble. If not humble is the wrong word. I don't think I feel qualified to advise people on how to do things with their own business. All I can say is how I would do it, and is for me. And bearing in mind, I have worked for large businesses, worked in IBM, had a leadership role there, and in the college, 500 and so people. Businesses are about people, and increasingly now, as the younger generation, the Generation X or Z or whatever, they're coming through, they don't have the same makeup as my generation and your generation did. So they don't believe they're going to be able to buy their own houses and have the same financial success. And to some extent, they don't need it, because you know, the base level of people who are on a reasonable salary these days, and their quality of life is pretty good. You know, there's not the, I mean, there are all sorts of issues in our society, but if you're working and you've got a reasonable job, then you're usually okay. They want to have a purpose to what they're doing. They want to see that what they're doing has the overall benefit of their society, their network, their business, whatever it is, and some reason for doing it. And for me, the idea of leadership, the leader's got to, it's got to be, for me, I lead through example, I think, and I lead through passion. So I have to believe in what I'm doing, and I have to give what I'm doing as a leader is something I commit totally to. If I don't support it, I can't do it, because I have to live and breathe the changes I want to see and the behaviours I want to see. So it really is leading from the top, but not just tick box. It's really believing in what you're trying to do. And you've got to communicate that down to everybody else in the business. Make sure all the arrows, all the direction, everybody's thoughts are aligned in the same way. And you're absolutely right. And I was guilty of this when we were together, as I was kind of developing this style, I guess, is you can then end up babbling and being just enthusiastic and bouncing around and stuff, and not actually providing the leadership. So it's very, very important, I think, to have a very clear, small number of objectives or mission statements and some way of articulating that which makes sense for your business and you feel comfortable with, and cascading that down so that everybody has an investment in achieving those objectives or KPIs, whatever you have to do with them. And then measure them. People won't believe you if you say it's really important we do this and you never actually look at that again. So it's very important to achieve X in your business. Make sure there's a measure of X that comes back to the senior management meeting or the regular reviews that people have, and remind people that we're making progress to that, or we're not making the progress we planned, or we're overachieving, whatever it is, and to congratulate and encourage and review if things aren't being achieved. So I think it's very clear objectives that are cascaded down the organisation and make sense to everybody in the organisation, everybody buys into. And one of the things I did at one of the businesses I joined, where they had a very clear mission, but they had KPIs, but no one had explained how the two line up. And in fact, they didn't really line up particularly well. So my first job was to rewrite the business plan and not change the objectives, because they'd done all that quite well. And they understood what they needed to do. They hadn't worked that out to how it impacted the teams in the business. So break that down to the teams. And then personally, I went around, and there was only 150 or so people in this case, but I presented that to everybody in the business, not one-on-one in groups, but everybody in the business got to hear how their piece of work contributed to the greater good of the business and the mission and the values that we were trying to way to do it. It's all about getting the people on board, getting the people aligned. And if you have too big an organization where you can't do that personally, you can use video, you can use YouTube, you can use all those things to try and communicate. And you must make sure that your levels of management buy into it as well. It's all about getting the people to go the extra mile to do the things you'd like them to do when you're not there, that they'll do in front of you, if you see what I mean. So they've got to sort of absorb your passion.
Yeah. Oh, crikey. Yeah. They say culture's what happens when the boss isn't looking, don't they?
Yeah, that's a good sign.
So yeah, there's some great themes coming through there again. I'd love to carry this on forever, but both of us can't do this. So that leadership by example is very important for me personally, but also it's themes which I see. And I struggle sometimes when I'm working with people, because they use the words, but their actions are disconnected from all that. And sometimes the passion is like a false passion. It's almost an active passion. And I've always had this belief that no matter how educated, intelligent, whatever measure you want is, but people are not stupid. They can smell fake. So they can see a sincere person, they can see passion, and it really does come through. And ego often gets in the way, I have found, and working with people with big egos is quite challenging indeed. Okay, well, you've kind of led into another question I was going to ask, and that was about communicating optimism and passion online. Very challenging. One webinar I attended was they talked about the rise of digital body language, understanding digital body language. And I have been on a webinar where somebody was actually falling asleep because the presentation of it wasn't that dynamic. However, we've all got to be careful, but from the communicator's point of view, what kind of steps have you taken to try and ensure that what you communicate well face to face? The question is how well, or what steps have you taken, I beg your pardon, to try and broaden that into IT, as it were, through the screen?
Yeah, do it online. Yeah, and actually that's interesting, because that's been a real learning curve for me over the last 3 months. And even now, as I'm talking to you, I'm trying to look at the camera, but my eyes are being distracted by the outside world, the window in front of me. But it's important, I think, to look into the camera and make sure that I'm engaging with you. And I did silly things. I borrowed one of my kids' teddies and put them just behind the computer, so I talked to the teddy bear. So I had something to focus on. Because for me personally, and it's just me, is I get a lot of cues back and encouragement back from the people I'm talking to when it's face to face, and I rely on that. I didn't realise quite how much I relied on that until I tried to do something. If you see, I've done this series of video blogs about my manifesto for the built environment. And I think I've got better. People can have a look at those. I've done 7 or 8 now, and I think they've got better as I've gone along. And it's really about relaxing. Imagine the person you're talking to, and you can see them sometimes on the screen, or if you're doing it just to a camera with no one there to respond to, you've got to really believe that what you're saying is worthwhile, and you have got it down to a fine level. And there's a balance to strike between perfection, because people don't expect me to produce a Hugh Edwards type newscaster quality delivery, which is good because I can't follow a script, and I just tend to have things I want to talk about and I elaborate on those themes. But to keep your discipline as well, so you don't go off, as we've already mentioned earlier on, is ramble about things. Try and keep it succinct and try and keep it short. So if you're doing a video for someone, keep it short, keep it snappy, keep it to the point. Make sure you plan what you want to say, and don't fall into the trap of rabbiting on too long. If you're trying to communicate via a sort of Zoom meeting or on a Skype call or something like that, then I think it is difficult. I think you just have to, for me as well, one of the other things is to make sure you don't talk too much, as I'm probably doing now, but try and make sure you give everybody the chance to talk, because it's often difficult. There's often a delay in people responding. But the passion, I think the passion still comes through online, and these tools are so much more usable and friendly than they used to be. And I think you can actually just maybe turn the language up a little bit, because it can easily become monotonous, can easily become something which sounds like you're reading, but don't read, and just treat it as a conversation. And it's a kind of a psychological mind game, really, to try and get yourself into the right place. But just practice, I guess. I'm not sure I'm pretty good at it yet, but.
Well, will any of us, but thank you, because again, you've demonstrated that kind of adaptability, but also your patience there. When I was asking that question, I stumbled a little bit, because I don't follow cues either. I was picking up on the interview rather than the scripted question, and I hope that comes across when people see it. And when I say I don't care, I do absolutely care. But what I mean is that I'm not trying to let perfection get in the way of okay and good. So people will see, and I will share with you the version that's clipped before I put it out anywhere, so you're happy with it. But people see this as it is. Yeah, absolutely. Because I certainly don't work for the BBC. Okay, so
I get my inspiration from Louis Theroux. Have you heard Louis Theroux?
I've heard of him, yeah.
And he's doing a series of podcasts, just audio. 2 things on that. I think people are comfortable with less quality video, but they need good quality sound. I think that's important when you're doing these things. And Louis Theroux makes, I'm sure he practices it and rehearses it, but he makes a thing about them being informal conversations rather than that. So he just checks, are you still recording over there? Is it all, he does those sorts of things that we did before we started this to make sure the camera worked. And I wasn't, showing the fact I've got a pair of football shorts on rather than a suit, that sort of stuff. He does that in the podcast to make sure people realise it's an actual informal communication, and that means it's more insightful. It's not staged, it's not managed, it's kind of what people believe and what they're thinking. So I think there's a lot of value to be done, as long as you get it good enough. And you did stumble over your words, but then I do that too, everybody does that, so no big deal.
A sort of a video version of shabby chic, I guess. So as long as people can kind of get the message. So
you've never called me shabby chic before,
but finally, bearing in mind the time, one of your answers was around helping people see opportunity, and thank you, because you helped me, and you were the kind of you planted that seed with me to actually interview a number of people, hence my survey. So grateful, thanks for that, Terry. Can we just wrap up by, I'm throwing this one completely at you now, what kind of wisdom would you give to anybody who's out there now running a business? Because I heard a word, post-COVID anxiety yesterday. This was a successful business leader, a millionaire with a portfolio of businesses, and he's saying he's got post-COVID anxiety. So what would you say, given all we've spoken about and your natural levels of optimism, to people out there?
Well, I think you use words that make me sound very learned and wise, and I don't feel that way, but I appreciate the comments. But for me, I think it's almost, everybody's got post-COVID anxieties, I'm sure, in varying degrees. I'm not too worried about going outside again and going off to the pub when they open, or my family and I are looking forward to flying out to somewhere for a holiday, which obviously didn't happen. So I'm not too worried about that kind of stuff myself. And I think that other people will be more worried about that. I know some of my friends just don't want to leave the house and they're still kind of isolating themselves even now, and they've got no particular reason to do that. They just don't feel safe. So there's all sorts of degrees of anxiety about personal life and how we're going to get back to dealing with whatever the new normal looks like. From a business perspective, I think it's going to be tough for a lot of people because, you just haven't had income for a while, and some people haven't been able to reduce their expenses, so they will have debts, they'll have things they hadn't planned for. The plans will be all over the place. I think there's quite a lot of sympathy and support for that situation at the moment. So, because almost everybody's in that scenario, so I don't think there's no shame in that. There was a guy who's running a hotel in Bournemouth, Eastbourne. It was on the news last night. His turnover annually, he said, was 180k, and he had £60,000 loan he had to take out just to pay for the bills. So that's going to be a massive impact on his business. So I think everybody's got those challenges. You're not alone in it, and the banks are being better than usual probably. Certainly the interest rates are low, so you can totally take advantage of that sort of thing. And if you're a business person, if you've made a business, you're quite a good problem solver. So you've managed to navigate your way through before, and I'm sure you'll find a way through again. As long as you're sure that you've got a proposition the market wants, you've got clients who will buy from you, it'll come back. So it's just a question of trying to maintain your belief and your focus in what you're trying to do as long as you can, and hopefully you can survive the downturn and things will start to pick up again. And it has had a big impact on everybody, whether you're running a business and you've had to pay these extra loans on. If you're a pensioner and you've got like me, I'm not a pensioner, but got a pension pot which is worth 20% less now than it was 6 months ago, that's going to make a difference to my life plans as well. So, we've all got these things to try and build with. You're not alone, everybody's got it. It's just a question of trying to look forward and make the best of what's in front of you, and trust that the rest of it you'll be able to sort out as you go along. At the end of the day, we'll survive. There's enough support around here that you can survive, and things will get better in the long term. So it sounds very crass really, but I do think we'll find a way through, and the businesses will start to regenerate. They'll find new ways of delivering to clients. They'll find new opportunities they hadn't expected, and some things they did before don't need anymore, what we wanted anymore. But I think there's going to be a way forward, and we just have to be flexible to cope with the new normal.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed, Terry. Appreciate that. So you've got an 11 o'clock, I've got a 11:15. So that just leads me to, as I said, I'll save this, just edit out any kind of scratches or anything in the video, and then send it to you before I actually publish.
Yeah, that's fine. That's great. No, thanks, Rob. Thanks, Mr. Nice to speak to you. All the best.
And the same to you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.